Bruce, are you ready here?
Yes, we are.
Is Joe out there? Joe's back in here?
Thanks for coming.
Okay, we'll bring this meeting back to order here.
Yes.
Okay, we'll get back to it here, bring this meeting back in here, so let's, based on the conversation that we had, we did preemptively get ahead of ourselves there, but that's fine, the conversation's going well there, and we're with that. Let's go on to the bullet number 6 there, review, discussion, and consideration of the interstate planning district and the Main Street River South planning district there. So Bruce, is there anything that you wanted to add or start us off with in regards to that, or?
Well, these in reverse order. Reverse, take them in reverse. John asked me to take them in reverse. Okay.
Any objections to starting with the lowest level and working our way up? Because some of them seem less controversial than others.
So, John, tell me exactly what you
Main
say.
Street or?
Talking like start with R5 or and work your way
Well,
up.
Mr. Chair, what would you like to do?
No, I would like to do this. I'd like to talk about the districts. If we feel that the districts have a place, we can talk about that and want to let everything else marinate on the brain and go from there.
Okay, look, again, for everybody's information, this district is at another level of review and scrutiny to make sure that if higher intensity or higher density uses, whatever density it might be at, should only go in these planning districts and not the remainder of the village. Yes, we live in the country where it's anybody's right, a property owner, developer, builder, citizen can ask for any change to the comprehensive plan and then down the road zoning that they want to ask for. It's their right. However, it doesn't have to be approved if we have enough checks and balances in the plan to control that. I know that's concerning several of you about the plan itself and how do we control it. So the objective here and the reason for the districts is to add this level of review. Any questions? So that, and I'll just quickly review the interstate planning district. Basically southeast of the interstate, abutting each side of Highway 83. Covers approximately 2.5 square miles. Not that all the land is going to be developed soon. This is long-range plan. A lot of this land is not in the village currently. In fact, this portion, you can see where I do with the cursor, that's Racine County. Currently, we cannot annex into Racine County per state law, but we can plan or do our comprehensive plan into Racine County. So, say 10, 15 years from now, state law changes, we can annex that area and attach it to that area. We get a development proposal. And I always say the village should be prepared with some land use for this area, and especially along here. Here we have another county highway and a state highway, and I would anticipate property owners down there would want higher intensity uses as well, given the location, and as growth occurs outward from the interstate. Any questions about this planning district?
That part of Racine County, is that the town of Waterford? Or
Yes, town of Waterford.
Any questions there for Bruce or John there on the?
Do you have a border agreement with them?
No. That is another way we could enter into Racine County if we had a boundary or border agreement with the town of Waterford. But we do not have one at the moment.
Is it likely, is it possible?
Anything's possible, but I tell you the truth, I would not anticipate what motivation Waterford has right now to enter into that unless the property owners ask for it, because the village can't serve that area with sewer and water. That would be probably, in my experience, that's the motivation for annexation, is the property owners to be able to sell their property for development, and or if there's failing septic systems and they're under orders to fix their systems, a lot of times sewer is less expensive than fixing their septic system. Albeit, right now, it would be a long haul to take sewer, and very expensive to get sewer to that location, especially along Highway Allen. In the northern reaches, not as much.
Anybody else?
And then quickly, the Main Street, South River area, almost exactly 100 acres, much smaller in size, but self-contained. The railroad tracks, Quantico River north, the East Troy railroad tracks on the west, and the property lines of the properties on the south side of Baby Road on the south. I had a question during the break, and that's a good question. You know, what happens to the properties south in the subdivision, the Quantico Estate subdivision, and Birch Rock is also located there. That's a big part. I would anticipate we would not be changing the land use of single family and multifamily and Birch Rock property as part of our land use plan. You know, those are stable land uses. I don't anticipate any changes for land uses in that area, nor should I don't think we want changes in land use for that area.
So Bruce, when we, in subsequent meetings to tonight, we are going to, like parcel by, not parcel by parcel, but north, northeast, south, southwest, as we move through the village, we're going to be taking up the consideration of zoning. So if there was a concern about the single family neighborhood there in the Quantico Estates, we could use that opportunity to do what we thought was best for them and for the area, correct?
Yes, I just want to maybe just add on to that. We'll be talking about land use that will ultimately create zoning or be correlated with zoning, not zoning per se, when we talk about the zoning district.
So I guess this, kind of get ahead of myself here for just a second though, just committee members do, in subsequent meetings, what our task will be to do is to go through these areas and discuss the land uses in these areas. So if we establish these districts, then we can like look within that district, how does that best look? If there's existing families, you know, as Jason pointed out last meeting, that's a great consideration, and it's on us to make sure we take that up. Am I looking at our capital record there, guys? Okay.
One thing, we recommended these districts. We decided internally as a staff that the area along 83, that's basically spoken for, that's a solid commercial area, so that we didn't need to add that into this. We talked about it at length. In addition to the interstate planning district, this whole area in here is basically the Schultz property that's between the tracks and the west side of the planning district. It's currently earmarked for all industrial. That's where the village was looking to expand industrial at this current time. I didn't see a need to allow that, I mean, create, you know, higher intensity uses, density uses in that land that I think should stay, my recommendation is to stay industrial in that area. Albeit some of this land right here along 83 could be industrial as well, but there's also alternative land uses that can go in along these properties as well along Highway 83.
Bruce, you said future industrial area, is that part of the village now or not?
Yes,
Okay,
it's in the
so
village.
it's part of the village. Okay.
In that area, along the tracks, east side of the tracks, the village goes all the way down to Beulah Station, but not, Beulah Station is not in the village, but goes to it.
Other questions about either of these districts for us?
Just one on the Main Street, isn't Indian Head Park in part of this?
Yes,
Should that be part of this?
it is.
P1,
I mean, should it? Oh, it's just people, okay,
it's
so
P1, so they're not,
very good.
What does Indian Head Park subtract from your 100 acres?
Pardon?
What does Indian Head subtract from your 100 acres?
Can you show me on the map where that is, please?
Yeah. Because within your 100 acres, I mean, we're sitting within the 100 acres right now. That's where we
Yeah.
are.
That's probably about 15.
But if you were gonna do a multi-use in this area, having the park there and having the trolley stop and all that kind of great stuff.
Correct.
It'd be a wonderful thing to keep there.
Correct.
Right.
Especially since the trolley is
Yeah.
commercial.
Nobody's
Yeah.
talking about doing anything.
No,
with the park.
Just contiguous area that
I
included.
guess that's kind of my
We could
relevant
become
question.
part of the green space of that
Correct.
100 acres.
changing a P1 zoning any place in the village would be exceptionally difficult. It's parkland, it's parkland.
Maps, before we started this overall comprehensive planning amendment process, maps that were provided and discussed at the plan commission level, many of you might remember seeing those, did include land north of the river as part of this planning area. It's been decided, you know, this is going to be the higher intensity area. We don't want that north of the river, first of all. And that's part of the village center overlay zoning district, potentially, that the economic development committee is working with right now.
Other questions, maps, text, anything describing the business mixed-use districts, sorry.
Okay. Does anybody want to make a motion to approve the districts?
I will make that motion.
Are you approving both or just one?
Jean, would you like to just state what your motion is? specifically?
Actually, I would like to, motion to approve the interstate planning district, proposal as well as the, Main Street River South planning district proposal. As written.
Okay, is there a second on that?
I will second.
Okay, any discussion? Okay. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, say no. Okay, that passes. So now we can move on to, excuse me, are there any extensions on that? Okay. Motion carries, and we'll go on now to, number 7 here, review, discussion, and consideration of specific descriptions of land use categories. Okay. All right, so let's go on to the mixed-use business here. I'll read it out loud there, and we'll open it up to discussion there. So mixed-use, business, business mixed-use overlay.
Easy for you to say.
There we go. Finally got it out.
Good job.
Where under undeveloped land or land with redevelopment potential in the village is within the interstate planning district or the Main Street River South planning district, and with the addition of residential dwelling units or a combination of uses, commercial, retail, office, or other related uses will enhance the business commercial environment, efficiently utilizes land, provides housing choices to enhance an active and growing economic base, and improves aesthetics of the built environment. Mixed-use development may be within a single building or within a unified development blending a combination of business with dwelling units on upper floors or in a separate building where the mixed-use functions are physically and functionally integrated. Sites designated with this land use category may be solely residential if compatible with adjacent business commercial uses in terms of pedestrian friendly, good traffic flow, and proper utilities to provide for the greater intensity of land use. A density of up to 20 dwelling units per acre should be allowed in the business mixed use with appropriate height and design standards. although densities exceeding 20 dwelling units per acre may be allowed if on-site and off-site amenities such as dedicated open space completed with the development are provided, and the site is a part of the village designated redevelopment plan of tax incremental financing district. Furthermore, this business mixed-use overlay land use category is intended to be applied as an optional development style to specific properties or areas only within the interstate planning district or Main Street, River South planning district. Okay?
Well, I think we had somebody say that this sole residential should be eliminated from that.
Yep.
As a suggestion. That if it's gonna be a business mixed-use district, why would it be solely residential?
Bruce, you had?
Am I misunderstanding that, or?
No, I think that's correct. I think you're understanding what Carl had said earlier.
Correct, you're right.
So, Bruce, what was your statement on that earlier?
So we might have within a mixed-use neighborhood or a grouping of properties, an individual property that it would make sense to have only residential.
I didn't understand that, say that again.
Yes. There might be a mixed-use area or a grouping of properties that we determine to be mixed-use, but an individually owned property within that grouping could only be residential.
For example, as Bruce pointed to in the Drexel Square, that specific development is subdivided and there's different owners of pieces of it. So therefore, there is conceivably an owner who solely owns the residential units on one tax key, therefore creating a specific residential-only development within the mixed-use area. Another example would be the Lynch site. We have developers arguing over whether or not mixed use is the right fit for that. A lot of that is dependent on what's happening with property owners adjacent, because we're always talking up and down that line and across the street, meaning if we had something, if the property owner owned both parcels, let's say the Greenwald parcel sold across the street, it'd be two different tax keys within the same mixed-use district, and the same investor could own both of those, do residential on one, commercial on the other, and create that same situation.
Could that be defined though, because I'm just looking at a big loophole?
You're right, yes, Jason and I talked during the break, Carl and I talked during the break. Yeah, maybe just give it to me. Can't talk this way. We could come up with better wording. We appreciate that. I'm not. If you have that'd be great. Often when you look at these words, the mind muddles and my head. I know what I want, but the words don't come out exactly.
I don't know what it would be, Bruce, but my mind kind of works so well, you know, what was something, how could something improve?
Yeah, compatible with existing plan and approved business commercial uses. Okay, so here's a suggestion.
Okay.
So we're on the sentence that starts with sites designed with this, about halfway through the paragraph. Everyone see where we're at?
You mean sites designated with this?
Sorry, I can't read today. Sites designated with this land use category may be solely residential if compatible with existing or planned, I'm assuming, or approved, planned and approved adjacent business commercial uses. Sure. But I think that the gist of it is that it can be solely residential if it's done adjacent to an existing or planned and approved similar mixed-use development. Underway. I see, so it needs to be, so I think the gist is it can be solely residential if it's adjacent to planned developments that are commercial in nature?
If they're already underway,
Okay.
not planned that we're hoping will happen.
So in the event we have, like, let's take the Lynch site, for example. It's adjacent to an existing planned commercial building owned by Dave Hazenfield, right? In theory, under this, if the planning commission and the board and everyone deemed appropriate, they could make that residential because there is a plan or existing commercial use adjacent to the property. So in essence, which I guess what we're saying is you can't have a residential next to residential.
And planned implies not something that might happen, but something that is definitely going to happen.
Change it to approved. I mean, plan was the word, but if you change it to approved, that means we have a site plan that's been approved by by the governing body, and we know.
Fix it on there, thank you.
Sorry, I know we're not supposed to talk, but thanks.
Isn't it work plan and approved? I think it's existing or plan and approved.
What's the G?
Yeah,
I think it was existing or plan and approved, is that correct?
yeah, let's put it like that, existing or planned and approved. Other comments?
Are we talking single-family residential or are two apartments? What exactly are we talking?
It would be multifamily.
Okay. So you're basically saying you don't want to have more than one of those on the same area?
What we're saying is you can't have multiple solely residential developments within a mixed-use district. It needs to be next to an approved or an existing commercial use.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
And we're saying that because we don't want too many in one area.
Correct. And I think honestly, part of it is you shouldn't use a mixed-use district to be able to slap up a residential development.
So we want to protect the integrity of the business
Correct.
part of this, in this particular.
So why are we allowing any of it then? Then why are we saying we want any residential?
I think because perhaps some is good, but a lot perhaps might not be the right place.
Well, and there's going to be developers out there that will propose buildings with retail right on the ground floor. Some will want it in a separate building. Some will want it in a separate building right next door, owned under a different tax key because they've got multiple LLCs. It just opens the door for having, like what Drexel Square has, which is one of their buildings is solely residential, included within a mixed-use development that has the mix of commercial and residential. What else sticks out?
In the sentence before, I made some changes. Until we read it here, I didn't realize there's used same word twice in one sentence. So I were to mix, the mix of uses, and I took out the word functions, where a mix of uses are physically and functionally integrated. I broke my own rule of using the same type of word.
Go back to the first part of the sentence, read the entire sentence.
Mixed-use development may be within a single building or within a unified development, blending a combination of businesses with dwelling units on upper floors or in a separate building where the mix of uses are physically and functionally integrated.
And what we can do is we can run off sheets right after the meeting so you can walk away with copies of whatever we've put together edited.
Any other questions here from the committee?
I guess I'd like to address the dwelling units per acre, and we want to talk stories.
Okay, let's talk about that.
I think we gotta know my stance, so I'm yours.
Will Jason just repeat it one more time? What would you like to see?
If I was to take my twist on it, it would be a density of up to 12 dwelling units per acre should be allowed in business mixed use with appropriate height and design standards, although densities not exceeding 14 dwelling units per acre may be allowed in on-site and off-site amenities such as dedicated, etc. And then another amendment on the bottom maybe is furthermore, this business mixed use overlay land use category is solely to be applied as an optional development style to the specific properties or areas within the interstate planning district or Main Street. So taking the intended of and replacing it solely. I don't know if that just sounds a little bit more certain so that things don't get stretched outside the boundaries.
Okay, well, let's take them in order. Who wants to change the 20 to something else, and what is it? Sorry,
I would like to see 12 as a consideration. I mean, 5 acres at 60 or 5 acres at 100 dwelling units is pretty rocking when you're looking at the difference. And they're already, 12's pretty solid, if not aggressive already.
Anyone on the committee think 20 is appropriate or could offer a reason why they would say yes to it?
I would say yes to it because I would like to, again, we're just setting guidelines, leave that up to the experts to make
These
that.
aren't guys. These can be pounded to you all the way home. So are you happy to see 20 anywhere in that area repeatedly? If yes is the answer, then you can go ahead and push 20. Because once you do it, it's gonna keep going side by side.
For the two districts that we are talking about, this being allowed in, I am comfortable with up to 20. I am comfortable with that.
And then what if we, and then, so what I heard you say is specifically within those districts, so do we want to make it, instead of intended for, change that to solely within those districts and lock it in to just within those areas?
That was my understanding of what you're intending.
That was
Okay.
I guess I must have missed that because.
No, it's okay.
Well, he said two things, and we're discussing
Yeah.
each of them, but
Yeah, I was under the assumption that these were the only two districts that this business mixed-use overlay would be allowed. Okay, that's what, I guess then you would have.
So solely intended.
We're just locking the language to be way more specific than,
So just
These two
can't be broad
districts-
yeah.
Okay.
easily.
Other thoughts?
Can't be broad.
What was that, Joe? I was thinking about something. What did you say before that? What, density? What, Joe?
I said I am comfortable with the density of being up to 20 units. That's what it reads. I'm just giving my opinion. It's an opinion. I don't want to change anything. I wasn't sure that's what you're looking for.
I just wanted to divide up the two things. I think, first of all, if we discuss the easier part of the two, I'm very much in favor of changing intended to solely. I think that is, pun on words, the intent of what we're talking about here is that these areas we're solely talking about. So, if we could, just a show of hands or more discussion? Let's talk about that first before get that settled.
What would you like?
So I'd like to make a motion that we approve the change from intended to solely as a group. So that's my motion.
That's your motion there?
I second.
Wait, who's second?
You got Roger, you can.
So,
Shelley, we had discussion. Shelley, yours.
I have a question. So let's say we're talking about these two areas, and this is the definition of business mixed use. What if we decide there's a third area that we want to talk about?
You'd have to do this process again, and you would have to add it. This
So
entire
we
thing
can-
we're going through.
So we can actually call it the same name, but say it's a different number of units?
No.
So that's what I'm saying.
Or you can make a business mixed use downtown. You
So
could
just
create a
call
new
it-
designation.
You could.
Like
Yes, you
theoretically,
could. You
the
can come back to
jump
this,
goes
yes.
back and forth. You
But
can
you'd
go
have
to
to come
this.
back, you'd have to come back and do this whole process again.
You
Not
only
based
have
on
one
what,
of these
not
definitions.
based off of what you're doing here tonight.
You're locking it in, so these are the only two areas
These
of
are
the
the only
entire
two
village
areas.
without changing the comprehensive plan.
And is that what we want?
Sounds like it.
No, I'm asking
Well-
the professional.
That's what's.
Well,
being-
in the, let me say, I think maybe what you're saying, Linda, is that there's, what I'm hearing, let me restate this, what I'm hearing is, within this process of the steering committee right now, when we talk about, in future meetings, look at specific areas for land uses, there might be another part of the community where mixed use could fit in. That's one thing.
Oh, in this process?
In this process,
Okay.
in this process, that's what I heard.
Right.
And then what Fred said, if after the plan, if your recommendation is forwarded to the plan commission and the village board and adopted like this, like we're talking about tonight, and then somebody wants to add another mixed use district somewhere else, off the top of my head, like say the Greenwood Shopping Center, it is, then somebody would have to ask for an amendment to the comprehensive plan. And maybe go through this whole process again.
It wouldn't be quite as much of a process, because we're only be addressing one issue. We're kind of doing this
True.
update for the 5-year update.
But it requires public participation, et cetera.
Right.
But if you guys see another opportunity over the course of the meetings, yes, we could come back and see what we talk about it and create something else.
But
I guess it just worries me that if we decide down the road, or someone does, that there's another area, as you said, that shopping center, then you have to do all this. And
Sure.
We're limiting, we're really limiting this. Do we want that? And
To amend the comprehensive plan is just a public hearing. I mean, so an amendment, we're really going into this because of the 5-year update that was kind of required also, so. And
Give you a
some of the
straight
big
answer?
changes.
I think it's a fair compromise.
Okay.
When you take into account what residents are asking for in terms of controlling the traffic flow and keeping them away from single family, and you're taking a look at the economic environment, you're taking a look at the board's talking about. That's what this is. I mean, it's all working within a group to come to the common ground, and I think this is a fair way to approach it.
And protecting that it doesn't go down where we don't want it.
Correct. Correct.
So I believe we have.
Yeah, we have that motion pending there.
Motion to change intended to sold.
Yep, so that's by Roger and seconded by Shelley. Any more discussion on that?
Sam.
John.
John, wait, I have John and then
John.
Sam.
I made a motion.
Shelley.
Shelley.
Shelley did
Yeah,
it.
Shelley.
No,
John made the
John
motion.
made the motion,
Shelley.
Shelley. Okay.
Okay. Put that to vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. Any abstentions? All right, motion carries. All right, so moving on here. I'm sorry, we got to stay right here.
Yeah.
Thank you. We have to debate the rest of this right now. So as presented, this is the mixed-use overlay definition land use.
You skipped over the next part of
So
this.
what was that, John?
The density.
I'm sorry, we have to get this hashed out.
Yeah, let's do
20
it.
units per dwelling acre. This is,
Okay.
we're here, let's do it. I'm sorry.
No, you're right.
I thought that's where we're going next.
We need, I thought that's what was.
No, that's fine, that's fine. Yeah, you're right.
And
No,
there were
you're
two
right.
sentences.
You're right.
So, are we ready to make a motion?
I'd like to
So-
discuss. Point out a couple
He
points.
made his point.
Yeah.
This is the language. I want to do it properly. It looked like he has discussion, so.
No, that's fine. Yeah.
Let's
no, I'm
have
with that,
discussion
I'm with
first
that.
before any motions.
Absolutely.
I guess I just like to go back to upper floors. What are we talking about as far as parameters of allowing the height of the building? Are we talking 2 stories, 3 stories, 15 Trump towers?
We have no limits.
So
Tall, or taller? Taller, 3 big.
let me, okay, I have actually some photos I can show you. But, when we talked last year about the business mixed use district with the plan commission, it was originally 6 floors and 75 feet, whichever is the tallest. And that was based on what we talked about with the fire department personnel about what they could fight a fire on. We talked about when we pulled at the plan commission's recommendation was 4 stories maximum, and or 50 feet. That's what was discussed. I just want to.
Go look at gearbox. That'll give you a good estimate of what the size, how tall one of those buildings would be.
How tall is gearbox?
45, 44?
And we had a discussion regarding hotels too, a couple meetings back that we looked up that were in other communities. I thought 4 stories was.
Here's a 4-story building near where I live. Again, I thought of this yesterday, so I ran out when it wasn't raining and it took a picture.
Sure. And what also allows,
4 stories.
if you think about the Lynch site, you can't dig down because of the water table, and we're going to encounter that a lot in and around the lake. So the other reason, the practical reason for 4 stories is developers were proposing 3 stories tall with half underground parking, because that's as far down as they could go, which conceivably leaves a half a floor, which that's a floor. So that's another reason for the 4-story.
This doesn't happen to be a senior complex, but you know, it's the same style building that I've always thought that I have in my mind of what similar type of construction, what a mixed-use building would look like in certain areas of the village.
Well, 4 is certainly more reasonable than 6. That would be
See, hence 2,
I just
4, 5.
Is that something that should be written into this?
If you don't, then you gotta,
Put
you
it
only
in.
got one control in
I guess
this
that's
ordinance.
studying
Put it in.
So, somebody gonna motion to put in a limit of 4?
I'm sorry, before we have a motion, I want to ask you a question because I'm not sure. The planning commission already said 4 stories. Does it need to be here also or not?
Well, that was more as guidance. We didn't put it
Okay.
into any, we were speaking with them, showing them drafts, and the feedback we received from the planning commission
Okay.
was knock it down.
Because I know then it went to the village board and then we had all this controversy and change.
Yep.
These never actually became law, but that was a guidance.
The safest bet is to just put it in there.
Put it in.
Density will be blank at a maximum of 4 stories, or what was it, 50 feet?
50 feet.
50 feet.
We'll say 4 floors.
30 foot ceilings.
Well,
we seem to be focusing
depending on how to
on
build-
the Lynch site too much in my mind.
Oh, it's one of the only relevant examples I have to draw on right now.
Oh, okay, because I'm thinking like out by 43, if somebody wants to build
Sure.
a hotel or something like that, I mean, are you saying?
No, and working with Pro Health was actually one of the other reasons where they have alternate plans in addition to just the ER facility, and we took those into account when you think about, you know, I don't want to get into hypotheticals because it's not, but the hospital beds and those types of things, and then the hotel certainly, that was another consideration. And the downtown as well. You know, we have to assume that at some point, some of those buildings in the downtown are going to be replaced.
Raised.
But if you don't put it in, you would allow the flexibility.
100 years from
Again, should it go with the front floor that has 4.5 stories?
Well, and that's 5 right there.
5-story hotel.
now. That's a hotel.
Is that the one in Franklin, Bruce?
Yeah. To tell you, you know, absolutely, when we heard, my wife and I heard there's a 5-story hotel going out near this corner, we thought, what the heck? It's gonna stick out like a sore thumb. That was my initial reaction, and my wife's too. She was a little more vocal than I was about this. But it actually fits in nicely. I've been surprised how nice it looks in that area.
You could also deal with the straight line issue, which seems to be we don't want residential over a certain number of stories. And you could parse it that way. I mean, I think that more hits the nail on the head.
I put it on my side on the story.
You get 2 factors
Consideration for the base, and then you can have a special exception of some sort.
Well, if residential and
That's what you guys get.
more than 4 stories?
We're asking you.
I don't, and John brought up Pro Health, and I don't know if Gene knows this or not, but when Pro Health was originally, the first phase of the building was constructed, it was constructed with extra and heavy-duty foundation to go higher.
Yes. Yes, it was. That added considerably to the cost of the original structure, so that's, they have an investment there, so I think in the future they're going to follow up their investment.
How much higher are they thinking?
I don't remember
But
what it
they're-
was,
well,
two more stories.
What do you guys do? 2?
So 2 more stories, okay, so we're still good at 4.
I think a hospital, a hotel, I guess, or a business office building.
So commercial.
Totally different than an apartment.
Right.
So I'm seeing
I
a
would
lot of
like
yeses
to see a
here.
split between that.
We want to deal with a cap for residential within a business mixed-use district then? That's, I'm seeing.
I think that makes sense.
Okay.
Opinion.
Yeah.
Why does it make a difference? I mean, if it's a residential building or a business, and if it's in one of these 2 areas, which are the only 2 areas that can do this, correct?
Sure.
What difference does it make if it's a residence or a business in those 2 areas? Who cares if they're both 5 stories? I mean, is there something structurally unsound? You made a statement earlier that the fire department will have problems if it's too large.
Over 6
That-
stories.
That should be a criteria. You know, the planning commission can veto anything that they think isn't right. They don't like it over 4 stories anyway. So I don't see why we have to put anything in there.
What's the thing, they can't do it, if you it's allowable, you can do certain number of patrols that
Takes
they
a
need.
meeting board. I mean, I respect the thought that it's scary, but we have an attorney that we talk to about this constantly, and he happens to disagree with you.
I mean, if there's a
I gotta roll
legitimate,
with him, right? He's our attorney.
if there's a legitimate reason for denying it, for example, the fire issue, that should be good enough, you know? And if there's not really a legitimate issue, they want to build it 5-story or less.
Is it McWanago?
One opinion, man. Talk,
Yeah, one opinion.
There's an economic issue. Bruce, originally back in April, he did a hierarchy, right? In terms of taxes, in terms of, you know, what does the best for tax base and all that other kind of good stuff. So we're spending all this time on residential, which was on the low end of the hierarchy. Okay, that's what we have to do. We made this the low hanging fruit right now. I don't know why, but that's what we're spending our time on. From a structure point, I agree with it. I mean, build whatever you want. For reference, where the McWanago Chief is located, that's 35 feet high. You know, it's technically it's a 3-story building. So that's in the middle, one of the oldest buildings in the village of McWanago. The economic reason is that residential versus commercial uses more management, uses more services, requires more services. For whatever reasons, residential demands more services. You know, commercially, you go home at whatever time.
That's why.
You go home, you shut the lights off, you know, power down your thermostat, you know, all this other kind of good stuff. But just residential demands more services. So more people located in a 4 or 5-story building, it's an economic thing that you're drawing more people, you're gonna have more cars. Somebody who's in an office doesn't, you know, need as many cars, you know.
If you ask our public works director or utilities director, they would tell you up is better than out because it saves on everything from manpower to the infrastructure to the wear and tear on the equipment.
It's still 20 units per acre. So
And
whether
they're
it's.
capped. They can't go infinitely high because they can only build
You
so many.
only put
So you're-
20 units per acre, so you're done with that.
I understand
Anyway.
your point, if you're gonna concentrate stuff and have more space around it, you know, leave that option type of thing, that's what you're saying?
Yeah.
By making the density of the, for the building.
Well,
Then we need to make a change?
I
Then?
don't think we do.
I see 1, 2, 3.
Have we gotten to density yet?
No, we're still on
Oh,
stories.
sorry, okay.
Well, we started talking about stories.
And I think they're saying that if we're gonna limit our 20 or whatever,
Yeah.
we don't have to really talk about stories.
That's right. Will limit itself.
Well, the stories will limit it, our equipment will limit it, and the economics of it will limit it.
There's flexibility.
And the last thing I guess we have to bring up is the big thing that so many people talk about is the feel of the community. Is McWanago going to feel the same if we have a 4-story, 5-story, or 6-story building out here? I mean, that's
well, you gotta remember, it's by the freeway.
So.
also by the freeway, but I'm talking right here because that's what's closest to the community. I'm just trying to air what, you know, let's get it out. This is what, you know.
No, I agree.
Let's just talk it out. I live in this community too. I love McWanago, and I don't want it to become a metropolitan. Now, it's not going to happen because we're too far away, but that is the fear. So, do we need to limit it? I'm a free market capitalist, and I think we need to have guidelines, but at the same time, we got to let builders build. And if we are too restrictive, they won't come here and build. We won't have nice apartments, and our industrial companies can't come here because they have nowhere for their people to go. So, you know, we're balancing a lot of things, but I guess the last thing of importance is that community feel. I think that's a real, we just have to talk it out amongst us before we vote on this thing. I'm perfectly fine not putting, just my opinion, I'm perfectly fine not putting any height restrictions on because it's going to come later down the road. This came up earlier. What happens in the planning commission? I'm on the planning commission. Believe me, every single project that comes through here gets very strenuous and long, drawn-out process of application to become a part of our village. First, they meet with the staff for sometimes months before it ever gets to us. Then we discuss it at the planning commission, and then I think we've got it resolved, because usually what you send to the village board gets passed on. But that many times doesn't happen now, especially in our what's going on, because the village board then changes it again. So please trust your fellow citizens, people that do this every day or every month, and we're all really watching out for our community. So with that said, I recommend that we don't put any caps on the height of the building, because that happens someplace else. But we do have to work this through and vote on 20 units, dwelling units or not, and I'd like to see it done tonight.
I have concerns with what some other people have talked about too. I have the same concern about limiting the 20 from a perspective of a potential builder who wants to have mixed-use space. You're limiting possibly what they can do. For example, in Muskego, there you know it's going to be a Sundex marketplace. The communities express they want different types of businesses to come here. If they're limited to how much square footage, I mean, the building I'm in right now stay empty forever. You don't want to end up with another complex of mixed use and have empty businesses or potential empty retail at the bottom if they can't be built to suit a potential person who already knows they want to come in and lease that space. And so maybe that means it's 12 per unit, or maybe it means if we need a bigger retail space, that means it has to be 15 units or 16. I think that's where we have to trust in the developers and the boards and the zoning and things like that to determine that, so we don't empty, so we get the best use and the filled space, to be built there. So I have concerns about kind of making it, anything other than up to 20.
So you like it as is what you're saying? You don't want to put a height or storage
I'm
restriction?
concerned about putting, saying what the limit is. Like if we say it's 12, or we say it's 14, or say it's 15, and then that negatively impacts what a potential person could build there.
Sure.
And that's where I think we're, hopefully relying on the people that are, put in these positions to help with these decisions. I mean, we had two, the way the building that I'm in currently sat empty forever because it was hard to fill those types of square footage buildings, and we have to kind of have an idea of what types of businesses can potentially go in there and build to suit or accommodate that to some degree. And if that changes because it's a 12 or a 14 or a 15 or 16, are we hurting ourselves by saying it has to be 12 when it needs to be 16 or whatever?
Sure.
That's just my concern.
Other comments for Bruce or myself? If I have a ballpark, it sounds like we don't want to add anything that adds a height restriction, and I'm not hearing a whole lot of desire to change to 20. Someone ready to make a motion?
Does anybody want to make a motion?
I make a motion. I'd like to make a motion to leave the 20 dwelling units per acre as is.
I second it. Who seconded? Linda. Linda, thank you.
All right, so we're strictly talking about the 20 dwelling units per acre. Okay. All right, first we have a second, any discussion? Okay, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed say no. No. Any abstentions? Okay.
So is my next question, Tom, does that mean that the district itself is ready to be voted on as a whole? Or are there other specific areas within it we need to talk about?
Well, I think we're still on the overall definition. I think we were kind of approving the parts of this.
Okay, that's what I mean, business mixed use, is there any other?
Are there any other parts of this?
Well, the exceeding 20.
Is there anything else for the committee that they would like to talk about in terms of definition here?
My understanding was we set it at 20.
Up to 20.
Exceeding 20, it's right there. It's right there, Chris.
Although it doesn't exceed 20.
Hold on. I'd like to keep this conversation confined to the committee here. I'd like to work for the committee, work in solitude. If the committee has concerns, go ahead.
I guess we should have a discussion. What did we just agree?
So what you're talking about is this clause right here, although densities exceeding 20 dwelling units per acre may be allowed if on-site and off-site amenities completed with the development are provided in the site of a part of the village designated redevelopment plan or tax incremental financing district. Anyone think we should remove that? Should we make changes to it, or do we like it as is?
Is that what you agree?
Do we want the hard cap at 20, or do we want to have a method for exceeding that? Is
I
essentially-
believe my motion was to leave it as is, because we already discussed what exceed meant, and that's additional land.
Okay,
So that was my motion. If that passed,
okay.
then we'd like to leave it as is.
That's what I thought we were saying.
Yeah, do we have a second?
So then are there any other sentences or phrases or ideas, concepts within the business mixed use district that we need to talk about specifically? Okay, then staff, when you're ready, staff would ask that you recommend the narrative as presented, amended.
Okay. Is there a motion to accept this land use as presented?
I'll make a motion.
April, can you state the motion, please?
You want to leave it as is?
To approve the business mixed use overlay district as amended.
As amended. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Who's seconding? Someone second?
Is there a second?
You're asking for a second?
Mhm.
I will second.
Okay, discussion. Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no.
No.
We have two no's?
Yeah, was that Roger there? Okay. Any abstentions? Okay. Motion carries. So I realize that we are a little bit past 8:30 here. Given where we are and the progress that we're making, I'd like to see us just continue on here and at least try to accomplish going through the high density multifamily, which is next on the agenda. So with that being said, are we comfortable moving on here, just staying on this right now, so given we're here now? Okay. Joe, all
May I
right.
take one more?
What's that?
Take one more?
Let's go one more. One for the ditch.
I guess,
All right.
not the dish.
All right, so here we go. As read right now, you got it up there, Bruce. Where land in the village or planned to be in the village, located only within the interstate planning district near existing or planned higher intensity, non-residential land use areas with good access to utilities and arterial streets, with the purpose to provide high density, potentially taller multifamily dwellings. 3 or more dwellings per building. Density to a maximum of 15 dwelling units per acre should be allowed in a high density multifamily.
Change this dwellings to buildings, that should be buildings.
Phrases, ideas in there that you want to pull out and talk about?
Bruce, can you give us an example?
Of a current high-density development? You've
Yeah,
got,
give us an example of something that is 15 years. Ashland.
Ashland, River Park Estates, well, Birch Rock, just that corner piece, not the whole thing.
Valinsky over on ESN, double N, River Park.
River Park, yeah.
That's over, that's 15.
That's right around 16 dwellings per acre.
Okay, thank you.
And this particular, this is designed specifically for the interstate planning district only, correct?
it's got two, it's either in the interstate planning district or near existing planned higher intensity non-residential.
It doesn't say or near, it says district near existing or planned higher density, non-residential.
Right.
Right, yeah, it's within, yeah, interstate
Within the
planning
extent.
district, that is near, maybe you should put that is near the intention. Because I see what you're saying, Klaus, or what John was interpreting at, within the interstate plan, near, yeah. I think he's right. Within
Only
the-
within the interstate planning district?
Yeah, only, yeah.
Only,
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, right.
That's what I was.
Yep.
Correct.
Just the interstate planning district.
Strictly the interstate.
Strictly.
Solely.
Solely the interstate planning district.
Solely. How about,
I think it's
look
good.
at it solely, how about solely?
Yes.
Solely. Sure.
Other comments for us, questions?
So,
Any more discussion? Anybody like to make a motion here?
I will make a motion to approve both the language and the limits as written
For high density multifamily.
for high-density multifamily.
Okay, one by Gene, is there a second?
I'll second. Who was that again?
Mary? Any discussion? Okay, any discussion there? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. Any abstentions? Okay, motion carries. All right. Well, let's just go and dig into it here and just finish off this agenda here, I guess, and talk about medium density and low density multifamily. All right, so here we go, medium density multifamily. We're landing in the village, we're planning to be in the village. Is that an appropriate location with good access to utilities and arterial streets to provide for moderate density and low level multifamily buildings, 3 or more dwellings per building? Furthermore, this land use category is intended to be located as a transition between more intense and less intense land use districts. A density of between 5 and 10 dwelling units per acre should be allowed in medium density multifamily. This land use category is intended to be applied to existing and built multifamily sites with density levels over 10 dwellings per acre, with no more density dwelling units added to those existing developments.
So what that last statement means, right, what that last statement means is we already have existing multifamily apartment or multifamily areas in the village that may exceed R10, but what we're going to do is label them R10. They will never be able to get bigger, and they will just exist as they are. And so what that also means is anything currently zoned R10, e.g. the Chapman property, would be this, because that's how it would exist. So the Chapman property, with this being approved this way, the multifamily section that is zoned for multifamily would come online at 10, between 5 and 10 units per acre. Does that make sense?
What is it currently?
What's currently zoned R10, and
Part of it is.
part of it is zoned R10,
Okay, and that R10,
goes up to 8.
okay, so it really increased from 8 to 10.
Correct. The point I was trying to make is when we originally had this planned out, R10 was going to be our highest density, so which would have dropped that parcel online at 15. But as you can see, Bruce made the R's, the 10, the numbers essentially match what the densities are, 5, 10, and 15. So that's what that last part means. Existing ones come
And
online.
we need to provide some land use color on the land use map, land use map for the existing projects that are over 10 units per acre. I do want to include them in the R15 or the high density, because then that's defeating the purpose of the interstate planning district.
Right.
So we put it slot it into here, but make sure that they can't take advantage of being in this district by having more density.
So they'll be grandfathered in, and that's the end of it, basically. Other questions about, is there any concept or idea in there that needs to be pulled out on its own and discussed?
I'd like to really put, sorry.
Is there a height issue in this? Is there a problem with the height here? This isn't going to provide 3 stories or anything like that. This will remain at 2 stories.
I think you should add that in. Really, I think if that's what the committee wants, because in theory, someone would shift things over. But I do understand that R10, has always been planned to be capped at 2.
That was the
I've
thought
seen more
process,
dots.
yes.
Well, I know I'm thinking of the Chapman property, obviously, because that's where it's located, and the rest of the things we're dealing with are in zones, specific zones. So we're going to do this for this particular, because this looks like this is village-wide, correct?
And a maximum of 2 stories.
Okay.
These are multifamily.
somewhere in there.
Because that would also include other areas.
Correct.
If we do have things along Honeywell,
Correct.
that would